Here are 8 films from the 1950s that are still genuinely disturbing. Some well-known, some not, but all worth watching. The Night of the Hunter was directed by Charles Laughton, an actor who directed only this once, and looks unlike most American films of the period, shot in a style borrowed from German Expressionism. The story follows Harry Powell, a reverend and serial killer, hunting 2 children who know where their father hid a large sum of stolen money. Their father shared a jail cell with Powell before his execution, but never gave him the hiding place, only enough for Powell to know the children had the secret. Then Powell married the children's mother to get closer to the money, and killed her too. The kids stay one step ahead of him, but not by much. Robert Mitchum's performance as Powell is powerful and genuinely unnerving. The child actors hold their own, and the film's dark tone is reinforced by a plot where the adults are either helpless or oblivious. Nobody protects anyone. When it came out in 1955, it flopped badly enough that Laughton never directed again, but its reputation has grown steadily since. Later audiences caught what early ones missed: the cinematography, the score, the amoral antagonist, and a story that felt ahead of its time. A woman is alone at night while her husband is away working at a late-night radio station. She hears a noise outside and calls the police. That is where Joseph Losey's The Prowler begins. One of the officers who responds is Webb Garwood, played by Van Heflin. He reassures Susan Gilray, played by Evelyn Keyes, but then becomes interested in her. Soon, Webb is the one creeping around outside, spying on her marriage and thinking about how to get her husband out of the way. Webb eventually learns about the husband's life insurance policy. He begins an affair with Susan, kills her husband, and stages the death as self-defense. Then he marries her. In a more conventional film, that might be the whole plot, but The Prowler keeps going. Susan becomes pregnant, they run away to a ghost town in the desert, and Webb's real nature becomes impossible for her to ignore. Writer James Ellroy called it a masterpiece of sexual creepiness, institutional corruption, and suffocating ugly passion. That sounds about right. The Hitch-Hiker was directed by Ida Lupino, an actress who stepped behind the camera at a time when female directors were still extremely rare in Hollywood. Edmund O'Brien and Frank Lovejoy play Roy and Gilbert, 2 friends on a fishing trip in the desert Southwest. On the road, they pick up a hitchhiker who turns out to be a psychotic killer, played by William Tallman. He forces them to drive him toward Mexico so he can escape the police. Instead of the usual city setting of film noir, Lupino puts the story in the dry, open desert. The film is taut, tough, and entirely without macho glorification, with strong performances from its 3 leads. The French film Diabolique came out several years before Psycho, and some sources say Hitchcock tried to buy the rights to the source novel, only to miss out by a matter of hours. That context matters because the film shocked audiences years before Psycho did something similar in the States. A cruel headmaster runs a boys' boarding school bought with his wife's money while openly carrying on with one of the teachers. He beats his wife, humiliates her publicly, and treats both women badly enough that they decide to kill him together. They do. They dispose of the body. And then it doesn't turn up where it's supposed to. The film is part suspense, part thriller, part horror. And the ending lands hard. Skip the 1996 Sharon Stone remake entirely. The original still works. Dementia is a little-known experiment in noir horror from John Parker, whose only directing credit this was. The film was based on a dream by his secretary, Adrienne Barrett, who he then cast in the lead role. It follows a guilt-ridden woman through a wordless night journey in Skid Row, Los Angeles. She encounters a newspaper with a mysterious stabbing headline, tries to avoid the police, and moves through a street full of disturbed strangers and threatening figures. Eventually, she meets a figure called the Evil One, who pushes her toward a rich man in a limousine. On the way, she is visited by a faceless, lantern-carrying spirit who leads her through a foggy graveyard and shows her the graves of her parents. But the deal does not bring safety for long, and the film keeps moving deeper into her damaged state of mind. Dementia went largely unappreciated and was later re-released under the title Daughter of Horror, with a running narration that weakens the images. The Bad Seed was one of the early films about an evil child, and it takes the wholesome image of a sweet little girl and turns it upside down. Rhoda looks innocent enough, with her braids, curtsies, and cute dresses, but the innocence doesn't last long. Christine Penmark seems to have a perfect life. Her father is a well-known writer, her husband is in the military, and her daughter is charming enough to disarm almost anyone. Then, a boy from Rhoda's school dies under suspicious circumstances, and his grieving mother begins asking questions that make Christine look at her own child differently. The more Christine understands what Rhoda may really be, the more she also has to face a dark secret from her own past. At one point, Bette Davis was interested in playing the mother, but director Mervyn LeRoy stayed with Nancy Kelly, who had originated the role on stage. In 1956, 3 actresses from the film were nominated for Academy Awards. Night of the Demon is based on M.R. James's story, Casting the Runes, and it has one of the best-known production arguments in the 1950s horror. Director Jacques Tourneur and writer Charles Bennett wanted the supernatural element to stay uncertain. Producer Hal E. Chester wanted the demon shown on screen. Chester won, and the film shows the demon clearly, despite objections from Tourneur, Bennett, and lead actor Dana Andrews. Jacques Tourneur later said the scenes where you really see the demon were shot without him, except for one sequence, and that the audience should never have completely seen it. Bennett was even harsher about the changes to the script, saying that if Chester walked up his driveway, he would shoot him dead. The story follows Dr. John Holden, played by Dana Andrews, who arrives in England for a convention where another professor had planned to expose Julian Carswell and the cult around him. Holden does not believe in the supernatural, but after Carswell predicts his death, Holden finds himself connected to the same cursed parchment that may have killed the professor before him. That is where the film gets most of its tension. A rational man trying to dismiss something that may already be closing in on him. The shortened US release was retitled Curse of the Demon, but whatever version you see, the central argument behind the film is still part of what makes it interesting. Should the demon have stayed uncertain, or was showing it the reason people remembered it? House on Haunted Hill is a haunted house thriller starring Vincent Price as Frederick Loren, an eccentric millionaire who invites 5 strangers to a party for his 4th wife, held in a supposedly haunted mansion. Murderous and possibly supernatural chaos follows. William Castle directed it, which tells you something about what kind of film this is. Castle was a showman first, and he treated cinema as an experience rather than just a movie. For The Tingler the same year, he had some theater seats rigged to vibrate. For House on Haunted Hill, his gimmick was a plastic skeleton that flew over the audience during the film. You obviously can't recreate Castle's theater gimmick at home, but the film holds up on its own well enough. A fast, entertaining horror ride, with Price clearly enjoying every minute of it.